Alrighty, just gotta move this, a little bit of that, make sure that timing chain is running right, and I think we're good. Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. Hi, and welcome to a brand new series that I'm going to be starting called Just My Two Cents. In this series, I'm going to probably explore different ideas, usually with a little bit of a story to them, and different things like that. And they're all going to be made on FiveM, and they might be short stories or they might just be illustrations. But I think it's a good way and vehicle for me to explore some rather interesting ideas about FiveM itself, actually. And maybe just play around with a little bit of, philosophy and things like that, because for those of you who don't know, I am actually a little bit of a philosophy nerd. I'm a psychology major, as what I ended up landing on at community college, and usually psychology and philosophy tend to be two of the main areas that I like to dive a little bit deeper on. And I'm going to start not comparing that, but coupling, that's the word. I'm going to start coupling that with my love of, short film making and FiveM. So, hopefully you guys like this concept. If you do, leave a like, leave a comment. If you want to see more content like this, please consider smashing that subscribe button. It means a lot to me. Don't worry, the traditional FiveM content is going to be staying. In fact, I have a major, exciting new thing in the works. Or, well, you could consider it a return to a rather old thing, but don't worry, that standby FiveM content is still going to be around along with the new stuff. But recently, I've been speaking about, issues with the game that is FiveM. And after releasing the last video I did like this, I came to the decision that, barring unforeseen circumstances like this new project I'm working on, not just this project, but also the other thing I mentioned that I can't really tell you guys about just yet, but will, be a thing we'll talk about shortly. I'm probably gonna be leaving the roleplay scene for a little bit. I'm kind of fed up with it, if I'm being rather honest. I don't really care for the politics of it and all of that. And I'm probably gonna be taking a step away from roleplay, but I'm gonna be focusing on making short films like this and tinkering around with ideas, as we're doing right here, actually. There's really only one way I see myself getting back into roleplay, but we'll revisit that later. I'm probably going to be trying to focus less on putting hours and hours and hours into it and more on spending time with my family and thinking about things that are important to me. You see, my channel has always been about ideas, whether those ideas were accepted or not, or noticed or not. That remains to be seen, I guess. But today, my goal is to set up and present two ideas, which are these. FiveM is a giant social experiment, and it is way more philosophical than you ever probably would have imagined. But let's tinker around with that idea, shall we? So before we dig deep into the philosophical side of things, or psychological really, we need to establish a few things. Now, if you're watching my videos, I would assume you are quite familiar with FiveM, but for those of you who don't know, FiveM is a multiplayer game that runs off of GTA 5's engine, and it allows people to play multiplayer with modifications such as the one I'm using to do this animation to sit in this chair, or to even be in this building, honestly. That being said though, It's probably one of the most popular genres roleplay is. And I don't know if it is statistically, but I mean, it's one of the most popular ones that I have seen on the platform. That being said, FiveM is not a social experiment in the traditional sense of a research project for gathering data. However, it is a means to view people's reactions to certain situations. And not only that, but people can have very intense moments in the game that might give you a peek into who they are and how they are as a person, how they operate, what their mindset might be on certain situations. Now, I'm by no means not at all suggesting that Tanya's not playing a psychopath indeed makes her a psychopath. I mean, I've questioned it at times, but not exactly, I'm kidding, and not actually, I don't think she's crazy, but she does play crazy very well. I'm just saying that stress can often translate just like it did for Michelle Carr during the judgmental shooting exercise at Quantico with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I can recall my first shooting in the game as a police officer. I got called to a phony stop. I was in position with my gun drawn. My heart rate was elevated because I was nervous because it was Aspire Gaming, and AG was notorious for having scenes that would start simple and then immediately turn into shootouts for no good reason. The character I was aiming at, he flinched. His arm moved in a manner similar to the animation that, shows someone reaching for a gun. And I shot him. And right after I turned his brains into clam chowder, I felt horrible. For all I knew, he could have been scratching his butt crack. But I still got, kind of tense and shot. I'm not gonna lie, I cried a little. Because after the adrenaline rush was over and it crossed my mind, if I can be that nervous in a video game, how many real lives were cut too short, or really too soon, in similar situations in real life? Now, not everyone is as passionate about the game, but the broader member base for the most part, in the big three, Aspirant, DOJ, SAF, tend to be that in the heat of the moment type. I say that to establish the fact that it can often show you a lot about a person and their rationale. I think we can pretty safely say FiveM is, or at least could be, an effective social experiment. I mean, truly, do you know of any other game where something so simple as, I don't know, a traffic stop can turn into a shootout so quickly? It's kind of a fascinating topic when you think about it. But let's look at the intersectionality of philosophy and gaming, shall we? Now we have come to a crossroads. The intersectionality of philosophy and gaming. I can hear good friends of mine telling me right now that I've gone crazy. But I truly believe that FiveM is a looking glass, or lens, that we can view our own society through. John Locke was an English philosopher born in 1632 who directly inspired Thomas Jefferson's Declaration of Independence, and probably had some influence on our own Constitution's Bill of Rights, if I had to just venture a guess. Anyway, nonetheless, Locke, among other philosophers of his day like Rousseau and Hobbes, believed that the social contract was an actual thing. They believed in a social contract in which government was created through the consent of the people and ruled by the majority. I'm heavily paraphrasing here, but essentially they believed that there was a time before civilization called the state of nature, where humans in this state could do as they damn well pleased. In other words, they had ultimate freedom. But eventually, people came together and decided to create civilization and forfeit some of those freedoms for the benefits such of, you know, safety under a justice system and so on. They believed that every man, once they are of age, had the right to either continue under the government they were born into or leave the rule of that government. In other words, society agreed to the social contract simply by actively participating in that system. Locke believed that the social contract promised protection of rights, equal justice under the law, and so on, and that when the social contract was violated, revolution was justified. Now, I'm not here to promote violence by any stretch of the imagination. However, Martin Luther King did say that riots are the cry of the unheard. I believe Cornel West actually said himself, either outright or alluded to, the very fact that the murder of George Floyd in our society's minds was a violation of the social contract. And when people felt that that social contract was violated, they stepped up and spoke up. But this is not a response by one race. Like it or not, January 6th could be considered the same thing. Albeit, the fears were irrational and these people were hoodwinked because they felt the social contract was violated. But they still had this innate concept of what the darn thing actually was, which boggles my mind and fascinates me. This type of thing, it happens all the time on FiveM. Just as an objective example, again, not trying to condone anything, but merely give an example of contract theory, social contract theory at work. When I was in Fallen Mistress Roleplay, the colonel of the state police felt that the directors and the department heads had violated the social contract for that community. While I don't deny that there was some pretty racist stuff said by Eli and his associates, well, more so Eli's associates than him himself, and that they were generally pretty difficult people to work with, I truly believe Stoner had a good faith belief, or at least a belief in his own heart or mind, that the actions Kate did constituted reckless endangerment, and he took it to trial. And when he thought that the justice system failed him, he basically took matters into his own hands, declared the social contract, null and void, and shot up the courthouse and deleted the VPS. So what am I trying to get at here? People's abuse tends to lead to social contract theory being worked out in our very lives. When leadership is yelling and cursing and screaming at members because they violated a rule in a video game and they want to lord some fictitious rank over their member base, yeah, that's usually going to result in a social contract theory moment, honestly. It's going to result in some form of retaliation, typically followed by a mass exodus. And if we learn to listen to people better, if we learn to love people first and understand that they're flawed human beings, and actually talk with one another about our issues, we would have less of these problems on FiveM. But nobody wants to talk about the fact that FiveM is broken and the old way of doing things isn't exactly working. There's a lot of political horse trading that goes on FiveM. The you scratch your back, first you meet, I scratch your back, you scratch mine type of thing. And there's a lot of big egos. I've seen people get demoted because one friend group came together to form lies about another. I've seen people stomp on toes and, kick people in the metaphorical kahunas to gain political power, jumping at the first chance they could to be a high-ranking member in different FiveM communities. Not because they thought they could do a better job than the last guy or gal, but simply because they wanted that power and wanted to abuse it. This is becoming way too common, and it's kind of why, short of a community that I trust to either be big enough to where, you know, I can't get banned for no reason, or, you know, have the political issues and so on, I'm probably not going to participate on FiveM roleplay as we know it going forward. There's too many people who think that they are God's gift to the green earth, rather. I'm getting a little tongue-tied here. It's been a long day. You'll see in the bloopers reel at the end. I've seen people who have failed at their real jobs as a first responder or member of the military who would boss people around on FiveM just so they could get a little taste of what maybe they think they missed out on, you know, in that original profession. And I'm just kind of over it personally. I've seen enough of it. I'm kind of getting sick of it. One of the best pieces of advice I ever received actually came from Angry Cops himself. And because I was dealing with the issue of stolen valor with a FiveM member in my community. And his response honestly takes the cake as far as, you know, a lot of these guys are concerned, who we look up to and revere for their service, and saying, you know, quote, he can be a member of the military and still be a dickhead. The two are not mutually exclusive. And if that is not the truest and most Angry Cops thing I have ever heard, I don't know what is. But I think it's kind of a note I want to leave you guys with. That's the end of this video. If you want to support content like this going forward, please like the ever-loving hell out of this video, because it lets me know that you all appreciate my content and that you appreciate me taking these... Oops, I accidentally opened the menu. Y'all didn't see that. But it lets me know that you guys are enjoying this content and that, you know, you all are actually getting something from this, because I want to do stuff that actually helps people and makes people feel good and maybe even teaches them something. I mean, I'm just a random gal on the internet who's a psychology major in community college. I'm not, by any stretch of the imagination, the ultimate authority on a lot of these issues, but I want to get people thinking about how these issues affect them, not just on FiveM, but in life. But if I can entertain you guys while I do that, well, I think I've done something pretty good, and I have a pretty good life. But with that, I want to thank you all very much for watching. Like, comment, do what you're gonna do. I will leave links to the FiveM store, where you can, you know, buy some merch, or, you know, buy a product for, you know, your FiveM server, and to my Patreon in the description, because I don't make any money off of this, and I don't necessarily have to, but if you feel, you know, in the mood to give, it's greatly appreciated. It's getting dark. I'll catch you guys later. Bye. FiveM is a giant social experiment, and and it is way more philosophical what they are going through, or not what they're going through, but how they would react to that situation in real life, as if they were that person. Now, I'm gonna have a few outtakes in these videos. I'm just letting you guys know now. Now, we're at an actual crossroads. The intersexuality. The intersexuality.